Hey everyone, I'm Breanna from Boom Studios and welcome to Boom Chat. Today I have the honor of speaking with Keanu Reeves, Matt Kindt, and Ron Garney, the insanely talented team that is bringing you BRZRKR. The man known only as B is half mortal and half god, cursed and compelled to violence, even at the sacrifice of his sanity. But after wandering the world for centuries, B may have finally found a refuge, working for the US government to fight the battles too violent and too dangerous for anyone else. In exchange, B will be granted the one thing he desires, the truth about his endless blood-soaked existence and how to end it. Okay, Keanu, BRZRKR #1, the opening issue seems to be an Easter egg for your fans. Can the fans look forward to any other Easter eggs in the series?
What Easter egg are you talking about?
There's this image that is very known to some people, sitting on a bench. If you see it, you know it.
Yeah, it wasn't. If you get that Easter egg out of it, then I think when you make a work of art, people make their own Easter eggs, and on that one, it was not intentional. I'm not.
Okay.
There's also a red and blue pill. That's a little meta. Maybe some people will think that's reference to the Matrix. But if if there's some Easter eggs, hopefully people enjoy them. And
great.
Awesome. I'm sure there can't help but be others.
That's what I'm excited to see, is like the fun little things that everybody's going to end up picking out. But from that, what inspired you to create the story of BRZRKR?
I don't know. It happened about in 2017, and I just had this idea of a character that was in the middle of a kind of Viking berserker, had gone berserker in this battle scene, and it just started from there. It was just coming out of this. I don't know. I had this image of a guy kind of punching through someone's chest and coming out of their back and ripping off arms. I don't know why, but I did.
And I know why.
That's okay. You don't have to know why. It's amazing. Okay. So from there, Matt, I want to ask you, what's it been like writing with Keanu, and can you describe the collaborative process between the two of you?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been great. I've collaborated a few times, and then especially with writing, it's kind of different every time, and you don't know how it's going to work. So going into it, I wasn't sure. And then, but Keanu came into the room with this idea and all this excitement and like a real twist for the story that I hadn't ever occurred to me, And so I was happy to just be there to hear it, and like as a writer, like I feel like writers are collectors of ideas, and like Keanu's just constantly spitting these ideas out, right? And I feel like I'm collecting them, and trying to put it together, and then and then adding some of me into it, and then sort of try to form it into a narrative. And it's been a collaboration like no other, because I've never worked with someone who can act it out, or can deliver lines, or then when the scripts are done, we go through it word by word, and then just the attention to detail, something that I've never had in a collaborator before. And so to me, it's been fun, super intense, and then the flow of ideas has been like nothing else. I usually you're writing, you're just in a vacuum, you're working, you're in your own head and everything. And this has been the opposite of that. We've been able to talk over every single part of the story and like figure things out, and like you're not alone. I feel like I'm not alone trying to figure it out, and we're just finding the character and having fun doing it. It's almost, to me, it's almost like being a kid again, where you're spitballing a story or a scenario and you're playing it out, and I feel like that's kind of what we're doing, but as adults.
That's really awesome that you get to keep that element of play. That's so important. Like, you don't ever want to lose playing, even when you're an adult. So that's great. So yeah. Ron, that brings me to my next question for you. How did you approach bringing B to life on the page? Like, your art is constantly evolving. You change your style to suit every project. What's your artistic process been like for this?
Well, first, let me say I was very sad that Matt gets so lonely, and I'm glad that he's not lonely anymore doing what he does for a living. It's very nice to hear that, because it is very isolated existence at times. But anyway, wait, what was your question? How do I evolve?
How do you evolve your art style to best suit each project? Like, what was it like bringing B to life on the page? Yeah.
You know, the book, the story has a very kinetic feel to it. You know, at least the first issue. Well, actually, everything I've read so far sort of does. And I tend to have a kinetic muscle behind what, my action and how I draw. I do tend to try to tailor styles for the characters, because I try not to have an ego about it and let my style just take over the character, but let the character live on its own and try to figure out what that could be. You've seen it with a lot of different characters I've done over these, but anyway, with this one, it just really came pretty naturally because of the kinetic nature of the story. I'm a fairly deep guy myself, and I see a lot of depth in the story, what's underneath the story. So it was pretty easy to get into for me. So going through the first issue, it was like getting on a nice Ducati or something, and just going, because it was just, the momentum just kept building through it. So, yeah, so that's basically it.
That's awesome.
Does that
Okay,
answer your question?
yeah, that works.
So.
So the next question is for Keanu and Matt. Can you both talk about how you developed the overall story and what the process was for breaking it up into comic book appropriate beats?
Yeah, it started with the initial idea way back in 2017, and then meeting Boom Studios, who gave me the opportunity to make a comic book, and under their direction, curatorship, and their knowledge, really assembled, the team that's working on Berserker. And in terms of the creative part of it's always developing, and Matt Kindt and I have, he's written the first 4 issues. Ron's, as he said, drawing number 2. We have outlines from 5 to 8, and while we're working, we're constantly kind of contributing to issues 9 through 12. Originally, when we were talking with Boom, Matt, well, I'll let you tell the story, Matt. But we, in terms of how many issues, I mean, for me, being a new guy to the business, Boom was saying, look, we usually do these kind of story arcs, and sometimes when we're doing a graphic novel, so they talked about having story arcs from issues 1 to 4, 5 through 8, and 9 through 12. So Matt K and I have kept that in mind on how we're developing the story.
Yeah, no, I remember the first meeting we had, we just talked about the overall story, like who is he, what does he do, like what's the scope of it. And I just remember going back to my hotel room that night, and I was like, I think this has to be 12 issues, because we hadn't really talked about like how long, And so the next day, so I was like, it's got to be 12 issues. It starts 80,000 years ago. Like this isn't a 4-issue series or 6. It's got to be at least 12.
So you're the culprit behind it.
Yeah, it's all my fault. You can blame me for the 40-page first issue, and
it's going to turn into 24.
And we're squeezing more pages for the rest of the issues. Hey, we're just trying to keep everybody employed,
Yeah. Keep the economy going.
It's a big story.
Well, I personally am grateful.
80,000
So Ron, that brings me to the art, since it's such a story that spans 80,000 years. You're working with many different eras. What kind of research did you have to do for the art, since it spans such like a vast area of time?
Well, I mean, I've only gotten up to almost the end of the second issue, and the second issue touches on some of that. But you know, the the challenge at this point in the beginning was, you know, Keanu and Matt had these sort of ideas about what this community of people look like at that time, because they, you know, it's kind of a fictional um, you know, group of people in society and everything. So the challenge for me was trying to get in their heads and figure out, you know, because there were ideas being thrown around where we'd see Mobius designs, and then there, you know, but then it was like, could it be like an Atlantis sort of thing, or is it more primitive, or you know? So it took me a bit of adjusting to get into where we, you know, because the story kind of keeps moving forward throughout from little B to big B's life, you know. So I have to be conscious of how things are evolving there. So I, you know, I was looking, you know, I look at old, you know, structures from different civilizations and things, and try to, you know, mix and match ideas, and just sort of feel my way through the process at this point, you know. And we're doing character designs and things like that, and you know, and I show them to Keanu and Matt and get some feedback on whether that's where they want to go or not, you know. And so far we seem to be doing an okay job. I think I'm on the right track. So but as far as the referencing of, you know, I haven't gotten that far into where we're seeing, you know, like we're touching upon areas where he's, you know, in the 50s, or he's in the 1800s or whatever, and he's being probed and prodded by, you know, I don't want to get into give too much away, but I would imagine down the road there's going to be more of that, and that's fun for me. I love doing yes. I love doing period pieces. It's one of my favorite things to do in comics. You know, I did this book, actually Wolverine, called Get Mystique. It was all about, you know, him in the Wild West, and I'm a big spaghetti Western fan guy, and I just love all that stuff. So, because every time period has its own particular look to it, you know. If you look at the Art Deco of the 20s, and you know, I just love doing that stuff. So this is fun for me. It's all candy to me.
Oh, that's awesome that you get this opportunity to do that. That's so cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So
Thank
my
God
next
for
question.
Google.
So my next question, without spoiling anything, of course, what is your favorite Berserker moment that you're looking forward to fans reading without spoiling anything? Let's do Ron first.
Well, again, there's a scene coming up with Tiny B, Little B, where he does this thing that involves an animal. I just read it. I'm like, what?
That sounds even worse when you say it that way, though.
I deliberately said it that way for that reason.
Maybe be a little.
Well, there's a couple of animals in it that he does something. Well,
I mean, really, it's my fault. I said no spoilers. So,
yeah, I mean, how do I?
All right, Matt.
I'm a visual person.
As you're drinking, I'm so sorry, Matt. Without spoil anything, what is your favorite Berserker moment that you're looking forward to the fans getting?
No, there's a fight scene at the end of the first arc around 3 and 4 where I can't wait to see it, you know. And awesome. Then but then I think issue 5 through 8, there's something we've threaded through issue 5 through 8 that ends with 8 that I cannot wait to see. I can't wait to see it. Ron, you want a double spread? You're getting a double spread in issue 8.
Yes.
So and it's going to be
all right.
Amazing. But yeah,
those are important. You know, I'm just.
Oh yeah, I know. We don't throw them in all the time.
Turn that page. It's like, whoa.
Okay, that's super awesome. All right, Keanu. Without spoiling anything, what are you most excited for fans to see?
You know, God, one moment. Oh
man.
I mean,
we took all the good ones.
I mean, there's so many. Issue 1, you know, that moment when B is holding the heart and he's eating the heart and looking over at the kid, and
he stops
when the little baby bites the breath, you know,
Tiny B
called back to favorite.
I'm really interested to see the quantum stuff. I'm trying to figure out how you can put that in there.
It's these moments. There's some moments coming where we're juxtaposing something very emotionally ardent, really like loneliness or connection or loss, and then compulsion to violence. But that this juxtaposition between the violence and the love, or these kind of exciting action sequences, but then also the backdrop of this almost of a kind of tragedy. And I don't know. And then this kind of idea of moving forward and surviving and trying to figure out. And so for me, it's exciting to see the incarnation of this story take all of those forms, with like the moment that Ron's talking about. Oh my gosh, and what we're doing in issue 8. I know I'm not being specific, but your question almost doesn't let me be specific.
Oh, no.
That's the best way, because it gets people excited, makes them want to figure out what it is.
Specific. So there's just going to be some cool situations that are going to be dramatic and fun, and also humor. There's a lot of humor in this piece. Not a lot, but there's humor in this as well.
That's so great. I'm excited because of how excited you all are. Like, I'm so ready for all of it. Okay. So I have one last question, and it is for Keanu. And this is like a personal question for me. I've seen like 1 or 2 of your movies, and there's something I've noticed that like you tend to say in them. Like, so are we going to get a moment maybe where we hear B go, I need guns, lots of guns? Like, is that something that might happen?
Okay, so that line is out of the Matrix film. Director John Wick, Chad Stahelski, wanted that beat in John Wick Chapter 2, and no, I'm sorry, John Wick Chapter 3.
Yeah, it was 3.
And I just was like, Chad, we can't do that. And then Chad was, we can't. But I don't think we'll be doing this for the story of BRZRKR.
Okay, all right, fine. I had to try.
My favorite part of the third John Wick was when the guy sat down next to him, told me he was a big fan when they're in the hotel. It was hilarious. I love that scene. And then he's fighting the 2 guys who are big fans.
Yeah. Right.
Oh my gosh.
Now, what's great about B though is like he doesn't need guns because he uses his hands so much. So
he doesn't need them. Oh my God. Thank you for letting me ask that. I had to. That was just for me. I really appreciate that. So that brings us to the end of this. So Keanu, Matt, Ron, thank you all so much for your time today. It has been so lovely chatting with all of you. And for those of you watching at home, be sure to pick up Berserker #1 in stores now.
I also want to give a shout out to the rest of the team here. We have Clem Problems on and we have Bill Crabtree on colors.
Bill,
Eric, senior editor for Boom Studios, along with Matt Gagnon and all of the cool folks at Boom Studios.